industry, there are a lot of gurus. They all claim to help you with everything from business to trauma healing and even find your soulmate. But do you know how to spot the grifters and avoid all these cults? Today, I will give you the 4 flags to look for before giving your hard earned money away and getting involved with a financial cult by using the BITE model. First, we need to talk about what a financial cult is. Financial cult is a term that refers to a cult that is focused on business. It has components of finances, but in truth, this can describe any cult as they're all just going to take your money anyway, in some form or another. But that's for another video. For our purposes, you can think of it like this. Cult is an umbrella term, much like Christian is an umbrella term. There are many different kinds of cults, like there are many different kinds of faiths in Christianity. There are Baptists and Catholics and fundamentalists, etc., etc. But they're all under that Christian umbrella. In cults, it's the same way. There are religious cults, financial cults, New Age cults, and political cults, and so many more. I've spent the past 2+ decades studying mindset and the law of attraction, and I also love studying cults. And I love to understand, or try to understand anyway, why people join them. Mostly what I see is people looking for a like-minded community. A stay-at-home mom might join a multi-level marketing scheme because she's craving community. She wants people to talk to. A professional woman might join something like Nexium because they're interested in all the opportunities that they can get from being around other professional women. Today, I teach people about mindset and how to implement it in their lives to achieve success, whatever that success looks like to them. But the last thing I want is to see anyone fall prey to grifters or worse yet, fall into some cult so deeply that they're brainwashed. And it takes years and years of therapy to find a new normal. I'm not a guru, no way, no how, but I can tell you that I see these cult leaders pop up every day, and the BITE model, it never fails. Just remember that when you see these kind of groups or leaders, you may not see all of these signs at once, or even in the beginning of your interactions with them. So be aware of any weird juju vibes you get. If you feel weird, trust your gut. The BITE model was developed by Dr. Stephen Hassan. He escaped the Moonies and became a leading cult expert and continues to help people learn about cults and help people heal from cult programming. The BITE model is divided into 4 sections, or red flags, if you will: behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control. In financial cults, such as multi-level marketing schemes, behavior control is easy to spot. In his book, Merchants of Deception, Eric Scheibler goes into detail about how he and his wife were indoctrinated into Amway, as well as how they were encouraged to have the wife stay at home and raise the children, while the husband went and worked the business. In his book that I'm currently reading for the Dead Writers Society podcast, he describes how the culture led him to feel that if he couldn't make enough for his wife to be a stay-at-home mom, he wasn't a real man. The couple was also required to use only Amway products, even though they cost more than the retail stores. In the cult of MLM, the distributor is almost always the customer as well. The opposite is true for a company like LuLaRoe. In the documentary LuLaRich, ex-distributor Roberta Blevins talks about how the owners were very adamant about retiring her husband. And while thankfully her husband did not quit his job, many consultants were pushed to retire their husbands. On the surface, this sounds like a wonderful goal. However, if we peel back just a tiny bit, we can see how this creates financial dependence on the cult. If the only income coming in is from the company, a distributor cannot easily leave. They are financially and emotionally tied to their business, and the time sunk fallacy becomes a factor. Realistically speaking, though, MLM distributor doesn't look good on a resume. Additionally, reps of these companies are financially manipulated by their uplines. They are highly encouraged to take out credit cards to pay for products, whether they need them or not. Oftentimes, these reps are told that they need to buy products on the last day of the month to keep the rank up their own business. Usually, this benefits the upline more than the individual. Many people have gone into bankruptcy, and some have lost their homes due to the excessive debts they incurred. Quite a few of these companies closed shop in 2024, leaving their consultants high and dry with a whole lot of debt and without a future commission payment. In financial cults such as MLMs, the financial control and manipulation runs deep. You can also see this behavior control in groups by the way they dress and behave. If they are all dressed alike and have similar temperaments and mannerisms, act the same as if you're talking to the same person over and over again, this is a glaring red flag. Next time you see a group photo on Instagram of one of those conventions, pay attention. They are all dressed and look eerily similar. While it's normal for people who spend a great deal of time together or live together to be alike, there are always differences in personalities and individual mannerisms. Even for a couple that has spent together their entire lives, there are some differences. No two people are exactly the same, and life would be boring if that were the case. Our next flag is information control. This is big in the political as well as financial cult spheres. Cult leaders love to control the narrative. They do not want any bad reviews or anyone questioning them at all. The other guy with the questions and the negative information is dismissed as fake, evil, criminal, lazy, etc., etc. Many cults will forbid their followers from reading the news or watching TV just so they can keep this information hidden. This is especially true if a person leaves the group. The remaining members are told to disassociation with that person that left. That person's a bad human. Scientologists call them suppressive persons. And in some groups, like Twin Flame Universe, members are told leaving will bring some sort of consequences upon themselves, and the remaining followers should avoid them at all costs. The truth is, the leadership doesn't want people to leave, and if they find out the bad things about them or the cult, they're going to jet. Once a group starts to lose credibility, it can lead to a mass exodus, with only a few loyalists left. This is when it becomes more dangerous as well. Many cult leaders are paranoid that someone, perhaps the government or an ex-member, is out to get them. The cult can become militant quite quickly because of this. In the MLM paparazzi, there have been reports of spies within the organization. People would be rewarded for telling on other reps if they worked with other direct sales companies, even if they kept them completely separate. Or if anything negative was said about paparazzi. This is pretty common in cults. Jim Jones was known for severely punishing members who spoke out about leaving Jonestown. One account of a survivor spoke of how another member's tongue was cut out for speaking about wanting to leave. While financial cults do not usually get so violent, NXIVM proved that even those aren't safe from being physically harmed. Being branded was considered to be an honor for the most dedicated, but the physical punishments didn't begin there. The women who have spoken out about their experiences spoke of being forced to call or text back within a specific time frame, or there would be big trouble. They spoke of blackmail via pictures and letters that, while untrue, could ruin themselves and those that they loved. Manipulation in the form of lying to someone to get information out of them is another tactic used to spy. On the outside, one might look at this like this is pretty childish. But a brainwashed person isn't using their adult critical thinking skills. In some ways, it's the inherent need for approval and acceptance that makes people vulnerable to these cults and their tactics. Next up, we have thought control. This is where it gets deep into the mindset and manifesting industry. I want to preface this by saying there are some absolutely wonderful people in this space. Many I have followed and learned from myself. But there are also a lot of crackpots and grifters. Amy Carlson was also known as Mother Love. She died because her followers refused to take her to the hospital, believing that she was becoming some enlightened being as she was turning blue. A lot of gurus use nonsensical buzzwords that make them sound knowledgeable, often developing their own languages and worlds outside of planet Earth. This is not like a video game where one can click out and return out into of that fantasy, but more of a whole other planet that humans are cleansed and will be taken to by angels or demons or whatever they pick to be their talking points. Take L. Ron Hubbard, for example. He created this whole religion, and I use that term loosely. It's based on mindset and character development. He was a bad science fiction writer, and he made a name for himself in the most absurd way possible by starting a cult. If you ever pick up a copy of Dianetics, burn it after reading the first 3 pages. It is nothing but a word salad of psychosis. Ironically, many of the tactics used in Scientology have been and continue to be used in other high control groups, as well as in the troubled teen industry programs. Hubbard didn't invent anything in his made up religious organization. He was, however, really good at taking credit. Another example of this is Maria Nursimlova. My apologies, I know I chopped that up really badly, and I'm sorry for that. But she's better known as the Scentbird CEO. Maria has been using her platform to spread the word of her mystical powers, to see into the threads of the multiverse, and give us messages of hate and intolerance. Her followers, they just eat it up. I admit, I'm a student of cult theory and philosophy. However, it is beyond me why people would believe such garbage in 2025. But they do. In Merchants of Deception, Scheibler talks about his own indoctrination and how his mind was changed about the poor over a period of time. Amway distributors are brainwashed into believing the poor are just lazy and are sucking resources from the government. We know that this isn't true. The working poor are the largest group of recipients of government benefits, and the people who are the richest in the USA pay no taxes due to special tax cuts written into the tax law. This is easily seen by the clear-headed individuals, but again, a brainwashed person is not at all clear-headed. Finally, we're in the fourth and final red flag, the letter E, which stands for emotional control. We touched on this briefly in the information control section, but the emotional control runs deep in the model. Each letter has an emotional component. In behavior control, we talked about financial manipulation, and as you can imagine, that makes one feel unworthy, and if they're unable to afford things that they need, or they're struggling to pay bills. It touches on our need for security, which in of itself is a cause for emotional insecurity. If you're stressed about paying rent, you're not going to think as clearly as usual. In information control, we discuss being shunned from the cult if you leave. This can cause an emotional conflict, as oftentimes these are friends and family who are involved. Nobody wants to be alone in this world. It's a scary place. And in groups like Amway, which is Christian-based, this can be emotionally taxing as your core beliefs and faith in God can be shaken. At first, the group will love you. They'll shower you with kindness and make you feel like you belong nowhere else in the universe. Once you're in, though, that's when the real manipulation begins. This is called love bombing, and for a person with low confidence or in need of a community, this is the first step in being able to control, as the emotional connection is always built up first. A lot of high control groups will encourage their members to stop talking to friends and family in order to isolate them. While this is a form of behavior control, it is also makes the person dependent on the group for emotional support. As someone who is a kind person and expects kindness in return, I have to be very wary of love bombing. In fact, due to my studies over the year, I have become a bit jaded towards anyone that seems just a little too friendly. Perhaps that's a defense mechanism you'll pick up along from this video as well. Leaving one of these high control groups can be an emotional nightmare. Imagine losing your friends, family, and the entire life that you've built up to this point. If you shudder at that thought, I can relate. Many cults strip people of their identities as part of the indoctrination process. They tear a person down to recreate them and to fit the group. It takes a lot for someone to leave, and many leave with nothing but the clothes on their backs. FLDS members who have left sometimes have no real-world skills in order to survive. There are groups out there that help them, and it's fortunate. And one of the Warren Jeffs' wives got his house and turned it into a place of hope for those who leave. I hope this video has given you something to think about and you learned a thing or two. If you have gotten this far, please leave a blue heart below to send out love and good vibes to all who are trapped in these high control groups. If you're in a cult and you need some help, please know there is help available. Until next time, peace, love, and giant lollipops.